Hello, this is Mike, NoStressMike.com. I want to talk about well, I'm always talking about self-defense, and I realized many people come back at me with the mindset of combat, and this is what I want to talk about: the difference between combat and the difference between self-defense in all the different aspects. And what is this? I want to start with the tools. I made a video talking about exotic weapons. Okay, in combat, you have people that use these weapons. A lot of them are found in a weapons platoon in the Marines. Marines, we had weapons platoon, and weapons platoon covered all the fancy stuff, the exotic stuff. I call exotic. I say it'd be the small mortars, machine guns, snipers, flamethrowers, demolition, shotgun. Just different types of weapons that take it takes experience, and to get that experience you need to practice. You need it's going to be expensive because all that stuff uses expensive stuff. I told you I was going into specializing in shotgun, and when you start using shells that run $5 to $10 a piece, it gets expensive to get experience or practice. I'll be making another video talking about experience and practice or training, whatever you want to call it. Because you can't apply what you know. You can practice all you want, but you're not going to be able to put it into action until you are in life and death situations. So, but that's another video. And so, in other words, special weapons, it takes special talents. And now I forgot what we're talking about. I got a lot of videos there I'm starting to make right here. The combat and self-defense. So like I say, it's exotic weapons. That's going to be one of the things that you're going to find in combat, and you won't find in self-defense under normal conditions. Like I say, there are people that use exotic weapons for self-defense. But I'm not going to get into that. That's a little bit more difficult. And but also in combat, you have a support system. When you get injured, you get hurt, somebody's going to take care of you. In combat, you're not by yourself. In combat, it's now police do a degree of combat, and that's why I say police don't really. The military I don't have much problems with on YouTube. I get some negative feedback a lot from police, and that's because they don't really understand. They are doing a degree of combat. Okay, in combat, you know where you're going to do this combat at. In combat, you know when you're going to do it, because you are going to prepare before you go into combat. I mean, what kind of idiot is just going to walk into a combat situation? They don't. You avoid combat situations. That's what you hear a lot about on self-defense. They say to avoid these situations. And if you know it's going to be a combat situation, that is smart. You've heard me say, don't. One of those things are, you're walking on the sidewalk and you see some ruffians in front of you, and then you cross the street to the other side, and that's, you are avoiding a combat situation, according to the way some people see self-defense. Now, I don't fall into that. So the thing is, when the way I see it, now we got to remember, I'm experienced. I've done this stuff multiple times. I don't avoid conflict. I prepare for conflict. So in other words, if I was to cross the street, I have learned in the way I have prepared myself, what I'm telling myself is, you are not prepared enough to handle this situation, and so we need to avoid it. And in my world, I've come across so many of these situations. I don't look to avoid them. I will come into this situation prepared, and we will see what's going to happen. In other words, on this side of the sidewalk, if there's two, and I've told the story about the sidewalk bandits, where there's two of them, and I don't care if there's two or if there's a half a dozen or a dozen of them, I'm still going to go right through them. And the thing is, I have prepared. There was a time I would say I was probably an idiot for doing it, and even now, there's times that I do stuff that I probably shouldn't have done. But like I say, as long as you prepare, you can do it. And you can't prepare for things if you don't know what these things are going to be. How do you prepare for a situation if you don't know what it's going to be? That's why most people, they prepare by looking on, and they use experience by what they see on TV. They call that experience. So that's why they come up with exotic weapons, and they don't have any kind of tactics that are worth a damn. Because like I say, what they're doing is they're watching combat type stuff, using combat type tactics, and you want to apply combat tactics to self-defense tactics. That's a no-no. I mentioned in Vietnam, 100 of us, I was in the Marines in 68, the whole year of 68, but I was in the Marines, and it would be 100 of us. We'd go up against between 500 and 7,000 was the biggest estimate that we went up against. Now, it's not like we attacked them. That's what I was talking about, self-defense. That's how I was able to mentally get through Vietnam. That's the way I can mentally function now. You hear me talk about, I prefer self-defense before combat. I don't really want to get into combat. I know what combat is. And I prefer self-defense. First thing on self-defense, you don't ask for it. They came to you. That's the first thing. Another thing on self-defense, I'm here, and you hear me talk about we have to have understand our moral obligation to protect ourselves. I am standing right here. This space around me, arm's reach, this space around me is my space. I can allow people to come in there, or I cannot allow them. Now, and this is what people give me shit about, the damn self-defense. If you're way over there, that is not self-defense. Self-defense is up here, up and close, where it's me, self. It comes to me. and they have to get close enough to harm me. They're not going to harm me over there. If so, it is called combat. Self-defense is in my space, my moral responsibility to protect my space. And that is what self-defense is. So that's why you don't use the same tactics, you don't use the same weapons, you don't use the same everything as you do in combat. Self-defense, it's easier to defend an area. Normally they say it's 10 to 1. In other words, if you have 10 people defending an area, it's going to take 100 people to get you out of that spot. So it's 10 to 1 to have an even conflict when it's in self-defense. And see, we're using self-defense as, like I say, 10 people protecting an area. That's a different type of self-defense, but it is a self-defense. That's what I'm talking about. What I did in Vietnam. I wasn't the ones that go into villages or I didn't go building to building into people's homes. I didn't do none of that kind of stuff. All I was out in the jungle, or I was up in the mountains somewhere. So, and I was along the DMZ. So in other words, I didn't ask for problems, other than I asked to join the Marines. that was a big mistake. But anyway, so we are here, they have to come to us. And I do the same thing right now. Self-defense is defending myself, and the same thing, I told you I'm a travel companion. One of the things I do, I understand whoever I'm with, I know their capabilities. And if they're equal to mine or they're looking to get better abilities, I will stand back and let them do their thing. If not, what I'll do is I will step in front of my friend, and then I'll defend myself. You know, I can't defend you, but I will defend myself. So the best thing you can do is get behind me. Now, and I go through when I'm traveling with people, I go through the certain procedures they need to learn. When I do certain moves, they need to do certain moves. And one of the things is they don't stand directly behind me. And I will explain to them and show them why and how it works like that. So, but it's the same thing. It's not like my friend and I are going to rush in and do something. No, we're going to stand our ground. That's called self-defense. That's why when you come into my home, I don't care about you. When you are raiding into my house, I don't care. People give me shit about self-defense. Well, you're using the AK for self-defense. Yes. Now, I will admit I like my neighbors. So I used my first few rounds will be porcelain. They're kind of glass type bullets. So they'll break after a wall. So they won't be going to my neighbor's house. If that's not enough warning to tell you to keep out of my house, then I run out of those, and then I go into penetrating ammunition, in which I'll get you, your friends, your car, I'll get everything about you. And so in other words, I draw the line when it comes to self-defense. And this is what I try to get people to understand. There is a line when it comes to self-defense. You need to learn where that line is, and you need to have the moral fortitude to practice, get the equipment, and know this equipment and understand it, and know you will have that moral obligation to do what you have to do. You hear people say, well, you know, I won't do nothing. Now, if somebody's going to hurt my kid, well, then I want to do. Okay, see, you drew the line somewhere. You just, and then so everybody will draw the line somewhere. I mean, I've seen people that would not fight, and they wouldn't draw the line anywhere. They just would not do it, and they perished. And this is what I saw in Vietnam. I mean, I saw Marines that would not fight, and so it's the same thing. If Marines can have some of these people every once in a while, you're going to see a bunch of people like that on the street. They're not willing, capable, or feel they have a moral responsibility to themselves. So they're going to let themselves perish. They're going to allow themselves to be victimized. I don't associate with those kind of people.